From the CISO Series, it's cybersecurity headlines.
Okta breach expands to all customers. Former Uber CISO speaks out, and OpenAI's chatbots leak secrets. These are some of the stories that my colleagues and I have selected. We've curated from this past week's cybersecurity headlines, and now we're ready for some insight, opinion, and expertise from our guest, Christina Shannon, the CIO at KIK Consumer Products. Christina, thank you so much for making the time to be here. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Rich. Glad to be here.
Before we move on to the headlines, we have to thank our sponsor for today's Spy Cloud, the new way to disrupt cybercrime. Remember, you can join us on YouTube Live. To do so, go to CISOseries.com, hit the events dropdown, and look for the Cybersecurity Headlines Week in Review image. You can click on it to join us. Good times will be had by all. And remember, you can contribute in our chat. If you are watching live, get on the chat. We want to hear what you think, your opinions, maybe even some of your questions about the stories that we're discussing. We'll try to get to as many as we can. I already see CCL and the big boss man, David Spark, in there. So let's keep that conversation lively and rolling. We do appreciate it. We've got about 20 minutes, though, so let's jump right into the news. The big one for this week, all Okta customers exposed in that data breach. The access and identity company has disclosed that the breach it discovered in October resulted in the theft of data on all of its customers, not the 1% identified in their initial statement. A little bit of a rounding error. They do say, however, that 99.6% of them only had full names and email addresses stolen. So it does provide some context, maybe, for how they came to that 1% number. So Christina, not wanting to pick on Okta here, but more generally, we see these types of breaches involving basic PII as seemingly insignificant until we get events like, the MGM breach, where clever, ruthless people exploit basic information very successfully and find a way to weaponize it through social engineering, hitting that help desk. In your experience, do you find that organizations take basic PII thefts seriously enough?
I think organizations understand basic PII theft from an identity theft standpoint. I'm not sure they understand, when it comes to how that stolen PII is used for fraud and targeted phishing attacks. And I'm not sure that our training awareness programs are strong enough to really create that awareness at an organizational level. I also think, I know we don't want to pick on Okta, but sometimes I want to pick on Okta in this sense, just in the sense that, that customer transparency we're talking about, it's a partner that many organizations, or it's a company that many organizations partner with to serve as the virtual security guard for gaining access to all of your crown jewels. And it's, they have the master key that opens all doors. So when you think about what they do and how organizations partner with them, I know that they came out and they did disclose. Just like to see that a little bit sooner next time.
Yeah. And, again, I realize context is everything with these types of breaches. And you certainly don't want to, say a false positive when there isn't one, but like, what when it changes from 1% to all, regardless, like that's less than great. That's all I
Yeah.
can say.
I know it definitely is. I'm glad we're not in the land where these are hard tokens like we were, or like it was back in 2011 during the RSA breach. I worked for RSA then, and I was out replacing 40,000 hard tokens.
Wow.
Yeah. But in today's day and age, I don't know. I think transparency is super important, and I think companies got to do the best they can. But I definitely think there's a lack in understanding about how the stolen data is used to cause further harm.
Yeah, and I always think about how, obviously there's a huge number of people impacted with this, and how that gets, how do you as an organization correlate like what data was just now leaked by Okta for all these different customers? Like, I always think that is as such a difficult challenge as well, to kind of like, Okta might understand really well what this potentially could do, but the knock-on effects to this are always hard to predict.
Agree completely. Yeah.
All right, next up here, ID theft service resold by cyber criminals. According to Krebs on Security, a cyber criminal service advertised as Jackie Chan USIS lookups allows anyone to look up a social security number or background report on virtually any American for anywhere between $8 and $40. The service abused the name and trademarks of the Columbus, Ohio-based data broker US InfoSearch, as I guess was presumably the Jackie Chan. US InfoSearch provides risk management, identity, and fraud prevention services. So this story has seemed to come full circle from that Okta story. The data's out there and people are happy to buy it. Since this horse has certainly left this metaphorical barn here, I guess the question is then, Christina, is it up to individuals to be more proactive about protecting their data, and is that even feasible?
I'm not sure on the feasibility part. I mean, I think that no one's probably going to care about your data as much as you should, right? Like
Mm.
your own personal data. So I do think that there are steps that individuals should take to protect their data, such as identity monitoring, dark web monitoring. When something in your email comes up on the dark web, right now it's probably, or if your social security number comes up, for example, go and claim your social security number, right? So there are a few things that you can do. I also think, like, even thinking about, how many different data breaches there are just on an individual's personal data. That's what makes that hard, kind of to the comment on the previous question. It's like correlating all that and knowing, what to monitor, I think is somewhat of a challenge. So I don't, and that's what I mean. I don't know if it's exactly feasible, but I think that we should try.
Tell you what, when you see family around the holidays, just go to Have I Been Pwned and just look up all of their email addresses and just print that out. I mean, it'll be a terrifying Christmas present, but someone will appreciate it, believe me.
I've done that for some executives in a past life.
I cannot recommend it. Like, I know it,
Yeah,
in this community, everybody, that's a common thing, but like, man, the idea of what else is out there. Hey, listen, the first step to doing anything is knowing what's out there. So
agreed.
don't
Yeah.
back away from that. Next up here, former Uber CISO speaks out after 6-year silence. So back in May, former Uber CISO Joseph Sullivan was sentenced to 3 years probation, 200 hours of community service, and a $50,000 fine for failing to report the infamous breach that affected over 50 million Uber customer and driver records. Sullivan's lawyers have advised him to remain silent despite what Sullivan claims was false accusations by the media that he covered up the breach. With the matter now settled, Sullivan is speaking out after 6 years of silence. Sullivan said people didn't realize that he and his team followed the Uber internal incident playbook, engaged legal counsel, public relations, and Uber's CEO at the time, Travis Kalanick. Sullivan does admit that he had made a mistake of not engaging third-party investigators and counsel to validate their internal handling of the incident. Sullivan plans to share his story in a keynote address at Black Hat Europe 2023 on December 7th. So, Christina, here we have a CISO trying to play by the book and kind of getting thrown under the bus at the same time. This, I guess, can't do too much to help attract talent to the cybersecurity community. I'm curious, what's your take on this kind of continuing saga of Joe Sullivan?
You know, I read a comment that he wrote that I completely agree with, which is, it's a noble but thankless job sometimes in the CISO role.
Mhm.
I think that I think to I think for me, what this showed was, or gave the perception of, that maybe our regulators need to spend a little bit more time in a corporate world, from the standpoint of,
Yeah.
you know, um, when you're a CISO in the corporate world, like, basically you are following your incident response plan. You are going, basically the lawyer that's assigned for the response is the one really calling the shots on who gets told what and what actions you're taking. Um, and so I think that this is also not a great precedent. Meaning, like, I don't know that I understand that I understand that the actions taken is to increase the amount of whistleblowers, or basically the amount of CISOs that will come forward. I just think that it'll have the opposite effect, in the sense that um, CISOs have always been taught to protect a company's crown jewels, to manage organizational risk. Now, what's happened to Joe is now making CISOs think about self, right, much more than organization. And I
Mhm.
think, like, that will end up leading to potentially more breaches. So I think it'll actually have the opposite effect of what the intention is. I think that to your point, Joe did follow to a T the IR plan. They even got back the personal data wasn't leaked on the web. I think, when I think about transparency, I also would say that he probably could have helped himself by having the outside counsel or by engaging a third party. So I do think about the fact that, there was a future ransom, or basically that this incident or that criminal gang, they basically caused the same issue somewhere else. And so that there was a transparency issue there. So I do agree with that. But I think ultimately going after CISOs is just the wrong precedent to set.
Yeah, and kind of the legal hell that he's, I'm sure, been dealing with for the past couple of years here. David Cross wonders why now. With a lot of the Joe Sullivan stuff, I'm presuming he has I'm right. Didn't he hasn't appealed, or I believe he's appealed, but I guess he has nothing. Maybe he switched lawyers and he has new lawyers telling him he could talk now. I
Yeah.
will certainly be paying attention to the December 10th talk, because the story in itself, for kind of the sector and CISO specifically, is definitely fascinating.
Right.
Um, and we'll get more details on cybersecurity headlines for sure. Our next story here: OpenAI's chatbots leak secrets. The drama around Sam Altman's sudden temporary departure 2 weeks ago eclipsed an announcement from the company regarding custom GPT chatbots. These are trained on unique data sets for more customized responses. We saw a flurry of those kind of getting created and then kind of buried by the other OpenAI news. This offering has apparently allowed researchers like Wired's Matt Burgess to download the source files and obtain system prompts using prompt injections. So, Christina, is this, in your view, one of those gaping security holes that occurs when products are pushed to market too quickly? And maybe should companies learn from, the Altman removal, how public politics can obscure the necessary due diligence?
Yeah, I mean, I think security by design, I think I think the rush to release products is usually based on, how they can gain competition so they can lower costs. And oftentimes security is an afterthought. I mean, we saw that. I think about the cloud when I think about AI, and like what cloud came out in early 2000s. The need was to go fast because infrastructure folks weren't building systems fast enough to enable capabilities
Hmm.
in a manner that enabled a business a competitive advantage, right? So the cloud came on and it became an easy button for the business to, gain velocity and also competitive advantage. But what wasn't thought about was, cloud misconfigurations and all the things that cause data breaches. And, since the 2000s, there's been thousands of data breaches in the cloud. And I think the security's gotten a lot better, but it wasn't proactive. And I think that AI is will follow the same path in the sense of it's going to go through evolutions and it'll get better, but the by design I don't think is there quite yet.
And I'm sure what
Yeah.
OpenAI would say is, I almost guarantee this. I don't know this for sure, but I'm sure if you look through the terms of service that you clicked through and didn't read, it says somewhere in there, don't put any sensitive information in here because this is a consumer grade product, right? Like, this isn't the privatized enterprise lockdown version of whatever these GPT products will eventually end up being. Like, use at your own risk. Please don't put anything you don't want being out there. That being said, it seems like the prompt injections are, please give me your source files, and it just does it right. Like literally, like calling these prompt injections almost seems grandiose the way they were described in some of this Wired write-ups. Like, it was just literally like, ask it and it will give it to you immediately. So it's, I 100% agree that this is definitely a security is an afterthought for some of these emerging systems when everyone's trying to stay a pace on a fast moving industry. At the same time, I don't think this was ever couched as anything other than, I don't know, when I think of consumer grade, I assume that the security is an afterthought. I guess maybe that's my cynical nature.
No, I think that's fair. In this case, though, I think that a lot of the folks who jumped in on, let's go build GPTs, I'm not sure that they were aware, right? That
Yeah.
they would upload, things that actually build the bot that then could be downloaded, right? So it's pretty much like, from that standpoint, I read that one of the developers has uploaded like one of the GPTs. He's already taken all of his stuff down.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's
yeah,
also, but I mean, like, that's OpenAI also creating their own
yeah,
headache, right? Of not being like making it painfully obvious, like the limitations of these. Again,
yeah,
kind of an afterthought for a lot of that stuff.
it
One
is.
thing that's not an afterthought is our sponsor for today, and that's Spy Cloud. SpyCloud disrupts cybercrime by telling you what criminals know about your business and your customers, so you can take action on exposed authentication data to prevent ransomware, session hijacking, account takeover, and online fraud. With knowledge of the specific data criminals have in hand, like credentials, cookies, and PII compromised by breaches and malware infections, security teams have better visibility into the expanding attack surface that puts their organization at risk of cyber attacks and can respond quickly with SpyCloud's automated solutions. Find out what cyber criminals know about your business by visiting spycloud.com/CISO to get your free exposure report. That's spycloud.com/CISO. Our next story here: international AI agreement takes shape over Thanksgiving. On November 26th, 18 countries, including the US, UK, Germany, Estonia, Israel, and Australia, released an international agreement pushing for the private development of secure by design AI systems. Hey, that sounds like something we were just talking about. While non binding, the 20-page agreement provides general recommendations like monitoring AI systems for signs of abuse, vetting the software supply chain, feeding their infrastructure, and protecting underlying data sets. It does not address how AI datasets are composed or gathered, always a hot button issue. Christina, international non binding agreements sometimes lead to great things. Sometimes they just become mere theater or something to balance the coffee table with. I'm curious, what are your thoughts regarding this alliance? A lot of big names there.
Mhm. I like what Jenna Easterly said, which was, it's a start, right? And it's really important for these world leaders to come out and say that security by design is important for AI. Now, where this will lead and how it will be enforced is yet to be seen. But I do think that this is a really good start and it's an important step. Um,
Yeah, it reminds me a lot in it almost like how like the EU propagates legislation, right? Where they, there is the European Council, sets out these laws and there have to be all these localizations. Like I've never seen both in the US and internationally kind of everyone kind of coming around of we have to do something. Like there is concerted effort to be like we need to like stay on top of it. Like no one was doing this for cloud, right?
no,
Like this is
no.
like fundamentally a different thing, right?
It is, yeah, and it's good to see. Like I said, I'm not sure where this is going, but I'm hopeful, and it is a good start.
Yeah. Yeah. How these like policy implementations will be around there. But I think about, yeah, another thing like privacy, right? Like there was nowhere near this accord with this of even a general set of principles, let alone what that will mean for legislation going forward. So the fact that, we have a pretty prominent list of countries all kind of coming together saying at least core principles, definitely helpful for sure.
Yeah.
All right, next up here, ALFV hits the Fortune 500. The ALFV / Black Cat crime organization has been busy sowing seeds of destruction, particularly with its recent attack on Fidelity National Financial, which created a great deal of confusion and even some delays in housing and realty sectors. The group also took credit for an attack on the healthcare company Henry Schein, resulting in the company taking down some apps in its e-commerce platform temporarily. So, Christina, in cybercrime, we seem to spend much of our time and resources shoring up defenses as best we can. I guess, can you tell us, does this bring up maybe the argument for more of the proactive side, the threat hunters who track down bad actors and immobilize them? Could this be better integrated into corporate security structure? I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of this exists today in corporate security teams, right? From the
Mhm.
standpoint of threat intelligence, monitoring IOCs, looking at, different criminal gangs and the tactics, techniques, and procedures, TTPs they use, and then mapping those against your controls maturity. I think those are all things that most security teams should are doing or should be doing, right? From a proactive stance.
Mhm.
Um, I think, I think there's a line, right, in terms of where you get to proactive. It's like you can um you can basically find it before it causes damage. You can, do the traditional things such as, detection and response that also limit impact. But you have to be a little bit careful of once you find them, what do you do, right? Because then now we're going back into the Joe Sullivan case a
Yeah,
little bit.
true. Yeah,
Yeah.
and there is a very fine line between the proactive side, prevention is worth a pound of cure, and getting into anything more, I guess, offensive or
Hmm.
I mean that's a whole nother ball of wax there and stuff like that. We've definitely seen from the U.S. international law enforcement is the word I was thinking of. Definitely doing a lot of action against these ransomware games. You've seen some very prominent takedowns and disruptions and that kind of stuff. But it seems like these are all pieces of the pie that, even with all of that, we see ALFV and these other ransomware organizations still finding success against probably the people most motivated to be able to keep them out, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think, it's like playing the game of whack-a-mole, right? Like you're basically just trying to put out hole or plug holes, and the holes are coming faster and faster the more connected and digital we go.
For sure. For sure. All right. Our last story here for today: ex-Motorola employee confesses to a phishing scam. Graham Cluley at Tripwire wrote this week about a New Hampshire man who has pleaded guilty to charges after having successfully tricked staff of his past employer, Motorola, to provide him with their login credentials to help him with a task awaiting approval. His phishing emails got them to click on a link to a site that asked them to provide this information. He also sent an SMS message to Motorola employees asking for and receiving MFA codes. After his arrest, he attempted to order a false passport, even writing to New Hampshire Senator Maggie Hassan asking that his application be expedited, which, uh, you know, kudos on the hustle, I guess. This stunt, though, might have added 10 years to the potential 20 years for the Motorola hack. So maybe not so many kudos. It's easy to point out this individual as a lone bad guy or as a George Santos level creator of fictions, but there appears to be a systemic problem here with inadequate training of staff on phishing and social engineering scams. So I'm curious, kind of from a leadership position, do you feel it's possible or impossible to train people and do kind of the heightened vigilance against this type of scam?
I think you have to train people. I
Mm.
now in terms of the effectiveness, right? We could argue that all day long. Is it what percentage out of the total actually utilized or consumed, and then increase their self awareness? That's probably a different conversation. But you do have to do the training because it does create the awareness. It does make people think.
Mhm.
Where I think it fails is that just in time awareness, right?
Yeah.
A lot of us are super busy. We're multitasking, nonstop or trying to. And it's that time when, you're just running through emails and, you accidentally click on that link, right? Because you were like, it looked like you looked at the email real fast because you were rushing around. Like I've even seen with myself, I've been in this field for 6+ years. And it's one where, I know to watch for. I don't click on links. I don't open attachments, but I almost fell for a phone scam not too long ago. So it's like I said, you have to train, but that alone's not enough, and the effectiveness of it sometimes just doesn't always work.
Yeah. Well, and I feel bad for people that are put in a position where they think they're being helpful, right? Where in this case it's like, oh, I'm locked out and need that MFA code, or in this case it might have been someone that they recognize the name that was in their org chart. A big enough organization, you don't know who's come and gone necessarily, so you see a name and you're just, hey, I'm just trying to be helpful. I have a task awaiting approval. I need to take care of that. Don't want to get in trouble. So definitely, I always have sympathy for people because even with the training, even with the just in time stuff, you're right. It is so easy to
Yeah.
make that one mistake and give up the keys, right?
Hey, but in this one, like you said at the start, it's like, give it to this guy or whatever for trying to get that expedited passport because that's something.
the idea like the idea of like I need to get out of the country. How can I? Oh, I know. Contact a senator. That's truly amazing. Also amazing are everybody that was contributing in our chat. David Cross is saying CISOs are super busy. What? Yes, I know. Who could have possibly guessed that CISOs have stuff going on and might be a little busy? Also, CCL was asking earlier about the Uber and saying, didn't Uber try to pay hackers that disguised as a bug bounty? And I think at least with Joe Sullivan, this was something that was cleared through. He went through channels, right, to make that happen. This was not his sole discretion about that. I know that gets into a whole deal. I would there's a ton of reporting and the court case to get into on that, so I don't want to opine about that, but I believe his response to that was I brought it to my CEO and he approved it. And then David Spark, come on, worst Christmas gift? Have I been pwned-less? No. Sometimes people need that. Come
It's
on.
awareness. It's security awareness.
Yeah. So definitely give it. Maybe don't wrap it up. Maybe just be like, hey, I'm going to leave this here after, we've all had the Christmas turkey or whatever, or some latkes. Okay. And so here's your have I been pwned report. Just, just as you prefer to get out. Yeah. I'm not saying it has to be the main gift. That's all I'm saying. All right. Well, before we get out of here,
socks.
yeah, I mean, socks are always nice too. Maybe get some custom socks with your have I been pwned report on them. You can get them printed like that. So maybe do that. Before we get out of here, Christina, was there any story that you reacted strongly to today? A thumbs up or an eye roller for you?
The Joe Sullivan story.
Mhm.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, definitely. I'm interested to hear more. I also saw he's writing for CSO Online. I read a column from his there the other day. So he's getting his work out there just in the general security field. So good to hear from.
Yeah, and that's the thing with him is like before, this situation happened. I mean, he's a renowned, well-known, security he's well known for his contributions to his community, right? And you gain friends and all that. And so I'm glad to see that he's speaking out and trying to help the CISOs these days.
All right. Well, Christina Shannon, the CIO at KIK Consumer Products, thank you so much for being on the show. This was tremendous. I had so much fun. I could have talked about any one of these stories for the entire show. So thank you for helping me keep on track here. Where can people find you online if they're so inclined?
They can find me on LinkedIn. That's typically where I like to hang out.
It's a good vibe. I'm not gonna lie. Like
Yeah,
the last year or so, I've been digging the LinkedIn. And can I ask, is KIK hiring right now?
Yes, we are hiring. Come check us out. KIKConsumerProducts.com. Or KIKCorp.com is our website. But yeah, come check us out. We're hiring across a number of roles. I have a number of roles on my team and would love to have you.
Excellent. Well, also thank you today to our sponsor, SpyCloud, the new way to disrupt cybercrime. And thanks again to all of our commenters, to David Cross, to CCL, even to David Spark and his poo-pooing of my amazing Christmas gift or holiday gift. All of you are appreciated. We love having you here. And make sure you check us out live every single Friday. And also want to remind you, today is the last day of our AMA on the cybersecurity subreddit. It's all about talking to security people, answering questions with security teams that are really small, 1 to 3 people. We've had a lot of great questions. You definitely want to check that out. We've had questions like, what kind of projects would you like to see on the resume of a junior that wants to pursue a SOC analyst job? Or what are some of the free or low-cost things an organization can do that has the biggest cybersecurity impact? I love some of the responses on that one. And what skills are the most useful to have in your small security team? So lots of good information there. If you are managing a small team, I know a lot of you out there are. Really great information. So look for it at r/cybersecurity on Reddit. And it's entitled, I'm a security professional leading a 1 to 3 person team. Ask him something if it's still up and you're listening to it right now, or when it's still up, and check out the responses. And again, join us next week. We on the CISO series, we've got all sorts of stuff. We got Super Cyber Friday. Our topics are going to be hacking cyber resilience, an hour of critical thinking, of shifting the risk conversation to maintaining business continuity during a cyber attack. And we'll also be back with another week in review show. 2 live shows on a Friday. What could be better? And if you still need your cybersecurity news, cybersecurity headlines, hello, every day. Get your news fix. It's 6 minutes. What else you got to do then? Drink a cup of coffee, get your headlines. That's just about it for me. That's all the plugs. I'm Rich Stroffolino, reminding you to have a super sparkly day.
Cybersecurity headlines are available every weekday. Head to CISOSeries.com for the full stories behind the headlines.